Kellen Moore rises to coach the Saints. Ladies and gentlemen, the Skip Bayless Show is the backdrop of today's video. Skip Bayless, a lifelong Cowboys fan, understands very well the acumen of Kellen Moore's coaching ability, so it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say about Kellen Moore's hire as new head coach of the New Orleans Saints. It'll also be interesting if he talks about the next update for the iPhone or the next iPod Touch or whatever Mr. Steve Jobs here with the black turtleneck is going to tell us. Okay, let's go ahead and get to the video.
In today's show, with a pet peeve I've shared with you again and again, this concept of the NFL coaching pipeline consisting of elevating offensive coordinators, play callers to head coaches, the Ben Johnsons of the world, now culminating in Kellen Moore.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a pretty good track record of offensive coordinators or play callers being unsuccessful as head coaches in the NFL. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, I digress.
Becoming the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, where the Super Bowl was just played.
Yeah,
Kellen Moore
won.
Will just stay over.
Yeah, well.
And become the head coach of the New Orleans Saints? Are you kidding me? Kellen Moore? Yeah, he can call plays, but he has zero charisma. Nice guy, but zero personality. It's like my producer Tyler Korn said to me last night. Kellen Moore looks like he should be the Eagles' IT guy. Yeah, he does.
Kind of an interesting, this is something we've talked about for the last week or so, is this idea that a head coach has to look a certain way or be a certain way to be successful, and it's bananas. That's what we're talking about. I mean, the idea that Kellen Moore has a baby face or he's young, he's 36 years old, the youngest coach in the NFL next year, the idea that he can't succeed or he's not fit to succeed or he's not fit to be a head coach because he looks a certain way is unbelievable. That is the narrative device that is being used in 2025. I mean, it really is insane. Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Ben Johnson, all guys that the NFL would line up to have call in their plays. None of those guys look 40-plus years old. None of those guys look intimidating, domineering, whatever. The idea that you have to look a certain way is ridiculous. What isn't ridiculous is the idea that you need to be able to lead a locker room. No doubt. No doubt about it. You got to be able to lead a locker room in order to be a good head coach. And I'll tell you this, it's not for nothing that Kellen Moore has a 50-3 record as quarterback at Boise State. Kellen Moore, I believe, was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy. Kellen Moore had Boise State in a position to compete for national championships, compete for major bowl games. Those dreams weren't always realized, but it was a different era before the playoff. But you don't get to 50-3 without being able to lead a locker room. You don't get to 50-3 as a quarterback without being able to do that. You don't get to exist through the volatility of Jerry Jones, Jason Garrett, and then Mike McCarthy without being good at your job. You don't have the ability to walk into Philadelphia in a time of absolute upheaval, toxicity all over the place, okay? Complete failure the previous season from Philadelphia. Nick Sirianni on the hot seat. Serious doubts about Jalen Hurts. You don't walk into that and turn them around to where they put 40-plus points up on Spags in the Super Bowl after putting 50-plus points up on Dan Quinn in the NFC Championship game. You don't get to that point without being a leader and without being good at your job. And it also says something about Kellen Moore that he went through the Dallas situation, survived the Jason Garrett firing, was allowed to call plays by Mike McCarthy, succeeded, okay? A year after being on the roster, all of a sudden he's the offensive coordinator. Says something about him. Says something about how much his teammates respected him. that they could go from him being a colleague to him being a boss. Goes to the Chargers, suffers through the Brandon Staley turnover, okay, fired by association, picks himself up, goes to Philadelphia, like I said, deals with Nick Sirianni, deals with what they have going on in Philadelphia, and rises to the occasion. I care so much more about that than I do about him having a beard. I care way more about his actual resume than I do about him having a baby face. I could care less about that. Would I rather Kellen Moore or Todd Bowles? I would much rather Kellen Moore. Would I rather Kellen Moore or Mike McCarthy? I would much rather Kellen Moore. I do not care one bit about what he looks like. Same as a CEO for a business. Do I care what Jeff Bezos looked like? Do I care what Elon Musk looked like? Do I care what Mark Zuckerberg looked like when they first started their businesses? No, I don't. I care about the results. I care about what their resume says.
You don't see many sideline shots of Kellen Moore calling plays because he's just so uninteresting. He's the opposite of the commanding officer that you need running a football team. This is no natural born leader. This is mousy quiet. I mean, would I take him over Shoddy in Dallas? Yeah, I probably would. But where was it written in NFL annals that
the annals of the NFL, not where you want to be, I'll tell you that much.
These stat nerd play callers could become great head coaches? How? Why?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Whenever the NFL switched into more of an offensive league and more of a data-driven offense, the two go hand in hand, right? We had people like Sean Payton dominate the NFL as a play caller, an offensive designer, whatever. We saw the breadth of young coaches come through with Kyle, Sean, Matt LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell. We are seeing it across the NFL. We are seeing young offensive minds evolving the game, changing how people look at the game, and we are seeing dinosaurs who are afraid to evolve, like Mike McCarthy, like Ron Rivera, be told to hit the bricks. So, I don't know if Skip just hasn't been watching, hasn't been paying attention, but seems like that idea, pretty decent.
What has Kellen Moore ever done in his coaching career that would qualify him to be a great head coach?
I mean, he did just win the Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. He became the offensive coordinator in Dallas in 2019. So he's got, we'll call it 5 years of offensive coordinator experience, play calling experience, multiple stops, multiple different versions of success. Some offensively driven by the pass, some offensively driven by the run.
Well, he coordinates an offense. Yeah, okay, I got it. But you don't have to command a room to do that. He did play quarterback, but he was like an undersized, overachieving quarterback. Okay.
But he absolutely did command a room to go 50-3 at Boise State. I mean, there's no doubt about that, right? Like, he was a super successful quarterback in which you would think he would have to command the room.
I give you that. For a little while, he was pretty good at Boise State, never so much in the NFL.
Yep.
But do you see any Sean Payton, any of that sort of oozing charisma that Sean had?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I would, maybe now that you can see things hindsight 2020, but I don't know if Sean Payton is exactly the macho man. I don't know if he's exactly Razor Ramon oozing machismo. I mean, similarly, like I said, to McVay and LaFleur and all these other guys. Like, some are fun, some are quirky, some are better looking than others, whatever. But as far as like oozing machismo, just these domineering leaders of men, like, I don't think you would say any of those guys are what it looks like. But is anyone doubting Sean McVay's ability to lead men? Is anybody doubting Kevin O'Connell's ability to lead men?
No. I love to watch Sean Payton call plays because he calls him chomping his gum like he means it. Like he calls something that you just know is going to work because his body language is screaming this play will work. Speaking of Dallas, is there even an ounce of Jimmy Johnson coursing through the veins of Kellen Moore? I'm sorry, not an ounce. Yeah, he did grow up playing for his dad, but it was in rural Washington, somewhere down in the lower state of Washington. I can't remember the name. Prosser, I think it was. Washington, played for his dad. So it always helps that your dad was a coach and you got some of that in you. But man, I'm here to tell you, he's a nice guy, Kellen Moore, who isn't remotely qualified to be the Saints head coach. I hope I'm wrong for the Saints' sake. But all I can say to you after you hosted the Super Bowl, New Orleans, is good luck with Kellen Moore.
All right. So, I mean, I guess let's look at the pros and cons. So the pros would be 5 years experience as the offensive coordinator, calling plays, won the Super Bowl recently as the offensive coordinator. Another pro, I guess, would be multiple stops, multiple successes. Adaptability, I guess, would be another pro, since we've seen him be able to succeed passing and running. We also saw in the Super Bowl that Chiefs stopped the run, didn't matter. Let's see, what else are some pros? Like I said, 50-3 as a college quarterback in college. Son of a lifelong high school football coach. Now let's move on to the negatives. Looks relatively young is young, I guess, from rural Washington, and doesn't chew gum like Sean Payton, is the current negatives and positives. Now, I'll ask you, my loyal audience, what side would you rather be on? Would you rather be on the pro side and look at that and say, well, that does seem pretty cool? Or do you go over to the con side and say, well, I mean, he doesn't chew gum a lot, so maybe we should, maybe I should just call Mickey Loomis right now. I mean, I still have time. I could call Mickey Loomis right now and say, hey, Mick, the face of the franchise. I don't know if you noticed. I hope the ink isn't dry, but I don't know if you noticed, but I haven't seen much visuals. I haven't seen many camera shots of Kellen chewing any gum. Is this something y'all talked about in the interview process? Did y'all talk about, maybe even during the interview process, you could have given Kellen some sticks, a couple pieces of juicy fruit. And say, hey, Kellen, you wouldn't mind calling plays while chewing these pieces of gum, would you? It would make me feel a lot better. No, Kellen. No. I don't want to hear about the Super Bowl. I don't want to see the ring. I don't want to hear about Dallas. I don't want to hear about the Chargers. I don't want to hear about Philadelphia. I don't want to hear about your play calling. I don't want to hear about your design. I don't want to hear about what you've learned over 5 years as a play caller in the NFL with great success. I don't want to hear about what you learned as a quarterback in Boise State. I don't want to hear about any of that stuff. I don't want to hear about your vision. I don't want to hear about how you see the roster going. I don't care, Kellen. Now I want to see you chew this pack of Big Red. And then I'll decide if you can be the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. I don't know. All right, ladies and gentlemen, get on down in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.